Hello and welcome to the Nature Hotline series, where each month we take questions asked to us by viewers just like you and answer them to the best of our abilities using our knowledge and network. Without further ado, let's talk about bug bones, rotting flesh flowers, and nuclear radiation.
I think I found an injured animal. What do I do?
How do I get involved in ecology?
What type of plant is this?
How do I identify poison ivy?
Which plants are native?
I found a snake. Is it venomous?
And our first question is, do bugs have bones? Well, to answer this, first we need to define what we mean when we say the term bugs. There is an order of insects that are the true bugs, and this is formally known as Hemiptera. There are around 80,000 species of true bugs within this order, and they can all be defined by having two pairs of wings that are divided into multiple parts and often fold over one another. Now that we've defined what a true bug is, the vast majority of people use the term bug to describe most insects, arachnids, mollusks, and many other invertebrates. Even professional entomologists will use bug to refer to the broad spectrum of different orders. So in this case, it's okay to be general. So now that we've cleared that up, we can answer the question of whether or not bugs do have bones. And of course, the short answer is no. Bugs do not have an internal skeleton of bones that support their body structure like we do. In fact, they have quite the exact opposite. Bugs have what we refer to as an exoskeleton, or an exterior form of protection made up of an incredibly durable material known as chitin. This chitinous exoskeleton functions primarily as a form of armor for most bugs, as it protects their soft interior parts. Insects attach their muscles to the inside of the exoskeleton by hooking onto the interior, rather than the exterior of the bones like other life forms do. Although this may seem unorthodox, bugs have developed insanely diverse methods of locomotion and virtual superpowers by exploiting this unique body structure. For example, beetles will utilize this stiff exoskeleton to reinforce their strength, making it capable for them to lift hundreds or even thousands of times their own body weight. Perhaps an even more impressive example of these superpowers may be the arachnids, specifically the jumping spiders. These insanely well-adapted animals have effectively created hydraulic pistons within their own bodies. By rapidly changing their internal body pressures, they can force hemolymph or bug blood into their legs with enough force to launch them up to 50 times their own body length. Essentially, this is basically the equivalent of me jumping to the top of the Statue of Liberty. Obviously, it pays to have your skeleton on the outside of your body if around 80% of all species living on Earth today are insects. Our second question is, why do flowers smell so good? Well, this is a fantastic question, and to answer it, we need to understand that flowers need to be pollinated in order to reproduce. And the best way to be pollinated is by relying on other organisms to transfer your reproductive components from plant to plant. This means that it is in a plant's best interest to attract as many pollinators as possible. Many plants will use bright colors or even color spectrums that humans can't see to attract visual pollinators. On top of visual cues, attractive smells bring in a lot of different pollinators, and many things enjoy a sweet scent, including humans. So a lot of species of flowers use this method of attraction to attract insects, birds, small mammals, and a whole host of other different animals. This generalist attraction is probably why many flowers smell very good to us as people. However, with that being said, there are plenty of flowers that are significantly less attractive in terms of fragrance. Take skunk cabbage as one example. These flowers burst through frozen ground and even snow in the early spring when many pollinators are not even present yet. There is, of course, one pollinator that is in relative abundance this time of year, and that is the flies. To capitalize on these scavenging insects, skunk cabbage has adapted to mimic a less than appetizing scent, that of rotting flesh. Not the type of bouquet most people are going to prefer, unless you're a carrion-eating fly, of course. And now we're going to move on to our third and final question. What is the best form of green energy? Well, this is an excellent question. However, green energy is an insanely broad topic, and you could make an entire movie on the different pros and cons of each type. However, for time and simplicity's sake, let's break this down to bare bones. When we're thinking of green energy, we're probably discussing low-impact, environmentally and economically sustainable means of energy production. There are many different forms of green energy, each with their own benefits and drawbacks. Solar, wind, nuclear, hydroelectric, and geothermal are just some of the most popular forms of discussed green energy. As far as positive attributes go, solar harnesses the virtually infinite power of the sun to excite electrons and create electricity. This can then be converted into a usable form or stored for later use. Wind energy relies on air movement to rotate massive generators that produce similar electric energy. Hydroelectric utilizes water movement to harness energy, while geothermal uses the heat of the Earth's interior to help generate it. And of course, nuclear power uses the power of fission to rip atoms apart and harness the energy to be converted into usable power sources. Now, all of these are beneficial ways of generating energy in their own forms, and utilizing them in tandem with other renewable methods of energy production can be extremely beneficial economically and environmentally. However, it is important to understand that each does have its own drawbacks. We'll start by talking about the one that people are probably most concerned about: nuclear power. Unsurprisingly, harmful byproducts of nuclear power need to be stored in specially contained areas to prevent contamination to the environment. What many do not know, however, is that the same can be said for old solar panels whose chemical components cannot be recycled and can be extremely harmful to soil and water quality if disposed of improperly. Now let's move on to some of the other problems with some of these green methods of energy. Wind turbines, as well as being loud, can be harmful to migratory birds that get struck by the massive rotating fins. Hydroelectric power requires the usage of dams that can completely disrupt and disturb the immediate ecosystem, as well as ecosystems both up and downstream. And of course, geothermal can lead to geologic instability that results in increased earthquake activity in those areas. Although each of these methods can have relatively significant side effects if used on a holistic level, utilizing best management practices in different parts of the world for the most efficient and clean energy production can significantly reduce the effects of each one of these drawbacks. Essentially, what that means is we need to use different combinations to produce energy that is the least environmentally harmful. It's also important to remember that our current primary methods of energy production are far more detrimental to the environment than any of these outlined methods. Both ecologically and economically efficient methods of energy production can be achieved, but it is up to us to put efforts into researching and discovering what those methods are so that we can start making large-scale changes to our environmental footprint today. And with that, we're all out of questions for today. Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Nature Hotline. Be sure to comment or email us questions for future videos. We might not put every question into a video, but we do take time to make sure every question gets a response and an answer. So don't be afraid to ask. Remember, keep asking questions, keep learning, and stay smart. See ya!